Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths of Ace, where I tackle some misconceptions about asexuality and try to debunk them. The first misconception that I'm going to tackle today is that aces cannot have children. I think this stems from the fact that aces don't feel sexual attraction, and therefore people assume they won't have sex to have children. But that's kind of missing a few different things. So even though aces don't feel sexual attraction, they can still have sex. They're still fully capable of having sex. And it's important to distinguish sexual attraction from, action. For example, aces can enjoy sex. Just because they're not sexually attracted to someone, they don't have that inherent desire to have sex with them, doesn't mean that they can't enjoy the physical act of it. Similarly, they may feel indifferent towards it but be dating someone who is allosexual, and therefore they might have sex in order to please their partner, or because it's a nice bonding experience to have with your partner in that case. And even so, even if they don't like sex, they might still be willing to have it every so often, or specifically to have children. I feel like I'm going to have to reel off a lot of things talking about this misconception because there are so many reasons why someone might have sex to have children. So there are alternatives to having sex to get pregnant, because saying that aces can't have children is pretty much the same as saying that gay people can't have children. Just because if two people biologically can't make a child on their own, doesn't mean they can't raise a child and they can't want a child. So obviously there's adoption. That's really important because there are a lot of children out there who need adopting. Similarly, you can use sperm donors or surrogates to have children, even if it's not one of the two people who raised the children who is carrying it. Sorry, I'm not used to talking about this stuff. It's weird. And if you need an example of someone who identifies as ace but raises children, who has children, then you have to look no further than David J. He's the founder of AVEN, the Asexuality, Visibility and Education Network, and I recently had the pleasure of meeting him during the 6 Feet of Space live stream. He came on as a special guest at the end. I'll leave a link to that stream in the description if you do want to go watch it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope everyone involved enjoyed it. David J is actually co-parenting a child, and he talks about his experience parenting as an asexual in the stream. So if you are interested, go check that out. The second one on the list is that asexuals can reproduce asexually. Now, I always like to do a funny one in these videos because if anyone... Just a second. As I was saying, I always like to do a silly one just to lighten the mood a little bit. Yes, obviously I don't think anyone seriously thinks that asexuals can clone themselves. That would be a bit creepy, as I have just demonstrated. I think acephobes will try and talk about that to say, hey, you're not asexual because asexual means this, because they don't know that there can be multiple definitions for a single word. Yes, some organisms reproduce asexually, but they're not asexual in the sense of the sexual orientation, which means you don't feel sexual attraction. Completely different things, maybe the same word. Deal with it. And finally, we have that aces, and in particular aros, can't feel emotion to the extent that allos can. And in particular that they may be emotionless or robotic, and in cases psychopathic. Now, this is something I see popping up a lot in popular media as opposed to like day-to-day conversation. People who are shown as not being interested in sex or not being interested in romance are often portrayed as emotionless and cold and, like I said, sometimes psychopathic. And that's very damaging because it can skew someone's opinion of asexuality and aromanticism like that. It can make them think that if someone isn't interested in sex, it means they can't feel. But there are so many different ways you can feel emotion, obviously. Affection and attraction and love in particular, you can feel towards a romantic partner, you can feel towards friends, you can feel towards family, you can feel towards pets. It isn't limited specifically to sexual and romantic things. There are lots of different expressions of affection and love. Honestly, I think this really just ties into society's fixation on sex and romance as being the most important thing and an essential for human existence. Obviously, there are people who that is important to, but at the same time, there are people to whom it's not important. But maybe it's just less important. Maybe they prioritize their friends over their romantic partner. Maybe they still want a romantic partner, but there's other things they want equally as much as that. And similarly, there are people who don't want romance at all, don't want a relationship, don't want sex. And they're all equally valid ways to live, and you don't need any one particular thing other than food and sleep and the basic necessities to live happily and content. So while food, drink and sleep are essential, sex and romance are not. And I think that's everything I had to cover today. Let me know what you think of these misconceptions. Did you enjoy this episode? Do you want to see more from Myths of Ace? And of course, as always, do you have any suggestions for future episodes? Any more misconceptions that I can cover? This is now the 4th episode that I've done, so I've currently covered 12 misconceptions. I imagine there are tons more, so if you want to supply me with ammo, then please do. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every other Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time. Bye. But while sleep, food, hydration. This is now the 4th episode that I have done, so that was 8. The second one on the list. Consider the coconut a what?